Hiker is probably one of the worst trainer classes in Gen 1. If you're in a cave and you see the sprite of a hiker ahead, you just go ahead and put a grass or a water type at the head of your party and prepare to knock out 5 Geodudes in a row. Cause yeah, these guys are pretty predictable. They're gonna be using Geodude, Machoke, Onyx, and Graveler. And that's it. Those are the only 4 Pokemon they use in Gen 1. I'm going to go ahead and rule out sneaking a Golem or 2 into this deck because not only is it terrible, but there's not a single NPC that uses a Golem in Gen 1. Even in Gen 2, you only see it when you rematch Hikers. Plus, you want to give Geodude and Graveler a little more room to shine. That's one of the main points I like to make with these theme decks, is using cards that would normally go unused. And despite having an attack that can deal infinity damage, Geodude is a pretty overlooked staple of Fossil. You already know what Pokemon are going to comprise this deck, so let's just go ahead and get into it. One thing that makes the Hiker interesting and kind of sets it apart from other trainer classes is that when you convert those predictable weak Pokemon from the in-game teams into TCG representations, it's actually pretty good and works pretty well. It's a solid deck. Machoke is a fantastic early game Pokemon. Low kicks dealing 20 damage for 1 energy. That's Haymaker level attacking. And then you have one of the forgotten big basics in Onyx. This thing's got 90 HP and can attack for 1 energy. The reason the card wasn't used more is because Machoke does have a higher damage output, but Onyx isn't really going to get O-code that often. Onyx is really more of a way to stall and sponge while also dealing chip damage every turn with Rock Throw. As I was saying earlier in the video, this Geodude has the potential to deal infinite damage. Generally, you're going to be doing either 0 damage or like 10 or 20 damage for 2 energy, which isn't good. But I have played like base Fossil draft matches where Geodudes have knocked out Charmeleons and Kadabras just off of godly coin flips. At least with Graveler, you do have guaranteed damage if you can get those 3 energy on there. But say you got the 3 energy on there and you get hit with an energy removal, Harden is still going to be a great resource for you for only 2 energy. That's actually going to stop a lot of early game attacks. Your advantage with this deck is definitely early game. As you can see from the Pokemon lineup, you're not using a whole lot of energy, but you're only going to be dealing low to medium damage. The strategy late game is going to just be outlast your opponent, switching in between those Gravelers and Onyx, and sponging damage, hopefully healing a little bit here and there, hitting your opponent back every now and then for small damage, trying to force them to swap. And then in key moments you can use a Gust of Wind, maybe drop some plus powers to get those key knockouts. But for the main part of the game, you're going to be hitting hard early game with Machoke, and then using Onyx and Graveler late game to just sponge damage and return chip damage. And that will just build up over time on both sides of the field. For the trainer base, nothing too fancy here. Going with a full play set of Bill, only 2 copies of Oak, and 2 copies of Item Finder. This is going to let you cycle through your deck pretty quick early game without decking yourself out too much, because you're really just looking for some of those early basics to go ahead and get set up. Your setup isn't so complicated that you're going to have to cycle through like 3 Oaks just to get all the cards. Item Finder is going to help you recycle some of those key trainers a little later in the game, like your potions or your plus powers that can come in really clutch. Energy removal to help stave off some of those big attacks that can really disrupt this deck. Switch is going to be pretty necessary when you're switching between Onyx and Gravelers. With games being so full of energy removal, you do want to conserve as much energy as you can. You don't want to be wasting them by spending 3 energy to retreat in Onyx when you only have 1 energy on there to attack with to begin with. A few copies of Gust to help get more favorable matchups. Maybe if your opponent's hiding some normal type Pokemon on their bench that aren't quite set up yet, you can pull those out, hit them for super effective damage. That way those low energy, low damage attacks are worth more. The full play set of Plus Power is going to help with that as well, as you can just drop those whenever you need those key knockouts or to just set up enough damage for a future knockout. Because of the nature of this deck, you will be relying a lot on Plus Power, but also on the playset of Defender and the full playset of Potion that's in this deck. Like I said earlier, one of your main strategies late game is just going to be outlasting your opponent. you do have attacks on Onyx and Graveler that prevent damage as long as it's 30 or less, but you can also slap a defender down on there, which is going to reduce the damage before it hits the Pokemon. And so if you're looking at getting hit with an attack for 50 damage, you can drop a defender, use Harden, and then on the next turn, that attack will be prevented by Harden. Or if you just want to straight up prevent 20 damage off of whatever attack is coming your way, you can just slap a defender down and just go about your day using Rock Throw or Low Kick to damage your opponent. Because this is a hiker deck, I did want to show some focus to high defense, outlasting your opponent, and that's where your Harden attacks are going to come in. That's where the defenders come in. And then Potion is going to help you reduce that damage even more once it's already been done. And then we'll just top off the deck with 14 fighting energy. I already excluded Golem because it would completely disrupt the energy curve of the deck, but also because there's no in-game hiker that actually used one. I don't know why I'm acting like I'm breaking some made-up rules that I don't even enforce. So if you want to include Golem in the deck, go for it. Another Pokemon that kind of meets this criteria is Machoke. It's an underused card, it fits the theme of the hiker deck, and it can just evolve up from Machop. But I don't like this card. I think that the energy cost for its attacks are too high, and that's why I just didn't even really consider including it. Two cards that were up for consideration were Base Set Dugtrio and Fossil Sandslash. Like Machoke and Golem, these are Pokemon that hikers did use in Gen 2, so, you know, you could kind of squeeze them in there, make up reasons why they should be included. And these are definitely two cards that do not see play. Mainly because they were completely overshadowed by other members of the fighting type, namely Haymaker cards like Hitmonchan and Machop. I really like both of these cards, but they just don't really have a place anywhere. So how you guys liking these theme decks so far? Let me know down in the comments. Also let me know what your favorite trainer class is if you haven't already. If you are enjoying this series on the channel, also let me know what other types of theme decks you would like to see, regardless of format. Because I've had a lot of fun just thinking about constructing and playing these decks against one another. Thank you for watching. Links to social media are in the description. Find me on any of those. And until next video, bye.